How's it going, guys? It's Nolan from Tacticon Armament, and today I'm going to be discussing LPVOs versus red dots. Which one's better? Which one will work best for you? Which one do I like better? Some of the pros and cons in between. So without any further ado, let's get down to the video. Let's start out by talking about everybody's favorite little brother, the red dot. Now, some of you guys know that I am running a flip to the side magnifier on this, and I will touch on that in just a moment. But right now, I want to talk about just the red dot. These are commonly called red dots, reflex sights, and pretty much everything in between that. They're pretty much interchangeable terms, so don't get too confused if I say reflex or red dot. It refers to a smaller optic that has a projector that projects a single dot or maybe a circle with a dot, similar reticles like that, onto a single piece of glass, unmagnified. All right, now that we got that out of the way, what are some of the pros of this bad boy? Number one, it's generally cost efficient. Buying a singular red dot is probably going to be more cost efficient than buying, well, honestly, they're more cost efficient than some iron sights these days. You can buy one, you can throw it on your rifle, and it's gonna work well for you. They are generally very robust. They are fast to pick up. What I mean by that is you can throw it on a rifle, and it's gonna be easy for a new or experienced shooter to kind of pick up and really run it home. You can throw it up and your eye picks up the either big red or green dot or different style reticle you got. Maybe it's a circle with a dot, crosshair, whatever it may be, and it's easy to put on target and make those hits. Your eye just really tracks in on it, and it works well with the human brain, or at least mine. It's lightweight. These don't have a whole lot going on to them. It's a little projector, a couple pieces of glass, and a metal housing with some batteries. It's lightweight, what can I say? There's no magnification, and it's gonna be very weight efficient for your rifle, depending on what you're loading and what you're running. You might be running a heavier rifle, and you throw one of these on to save weight. Who knows? This is what serves you best, right? It comes in a lot of different flavors. Like I was saying before, the red dot doesn't just have to be a dot or red. It can be a circle with a dot, a crosshair, just a plain old dot. It can be red, green. There are some that come in blue. You have the whole choice and the color of the rainbow with these things, and that's what really brings a lot of people to buy them. They're versatile, they're inexpensive, and they just generally run. Now, what are some of the cons of the red dot? Well, distance. Distance is going to be one of your biggest downfalls with these guys. When you're actually shooting at ranges past, I'd say about 100 meters, the red dot starts to fall off. You can't really see where your impacts are going on the target. You can't see that well what you're shooting, depending on what it is. Now, I know there are some shooters out there that are better than me that can easily make shots out to 300, 400, however far it may be with a red dot. Rock on, more power to you. But for me, once I start getting past 100 meters, I don't know where my rounds are necessarily hitting on that paper. With steel, different story, but that's the case. 100 yards, you're kind of limited. That's why I throw 3 times magnifier on there. It will give me a similar feel to running a magnified optic like a Lpvo, for example. This gives me that little bit extra distance. Now, that's gonna add more weight. It's gonna add more weight, more moving parts. You're gonna have to train with it more. You're gonna have to get used to the eye relief with the actual magnifier. But a little more on that later. Batteries. No matter what you do, you're gonna have to use batteries for your red dot. That means you're eventually gonna run out of them. Batteries are gonna die. You might be out at the range. You might be in a worse situation than that, or you might just be at home doing some dry fire. But your batteries will eventually die if you don't keep up on them. That's one of my biggest cons to a red dot, that I will have to continue to change batteries out to make this work. Now, is it really that bad? Do I really have to change them out all that often? No, I don't. I've changed these out maybe once, and I've had this on my rifle for a very long time. Been swapping it out between rifles, playing with it, testing with it, beating it up, all sorts of different things. I haven't had to change it that much, but that being said, it's still a factor to take into account when you are looking at the two. I find this a little bit harder to zero than an Lpvo. When I'm actually going out to the range and I need to re-zero it on whatever rifle I'm throwing it on, I find red dots, I take less time with them. I am less stringent on how accurate it actually is. I'll throw up a target at 50 yards, I'll take a couple shots, walk down, check it. If it's in a fist-sized group, good to go, rock on, I'm gonna run drills and keep going. With the Lpvo, on the other hand, I take a little bit more time. That's just because I find it simpler for myself. Now, if you like zeroing these better, again, more power to you, rock on. All that being said about this system and this setup of the red dot, to match something to be able to reach out further, you're gonna need this. But I digress, it is still an amazing system, an amazing setup to run. Once you start throwing this on, your cost is gonna start getting up there, right? You throw that magnified optic on, now you're looking closer to something that might be in the Lpvo range. So that's up to you to ask yourself, do I want to run a system like this or an Lpvo? That being said, let's jump into the Lpvo, talk about the pros and cons of that, and then we'll end with my final thoughts and opinion on the two. The Lpvo, the new kid on the block, the new hot, what everybody seems to be running these days. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about why you see these on so many guns these days, and let's see really if it's worth it. So, for those who don't know, an Lpvo, or a low power variable optic, it's a scope, like you see here, that will have a power designation between 1, so a 1 times magnification, all the way up to maybe even a 10 or a 12, depending on what it is. What are the pros of the Lpvo? It's one unit. It is a singular unit as compared to the red dot with a magnifier. I don't have to worry about two separate things on my rifle. I throw one thing on, I'm good to go. I don't have to adjust them, they won't get out of sync. All I have to worry about is keeping this intact and hopefully the mount not coming loose if I'm really thrashing this around and running it over with a car. That being said, they're sturdy, you know? These aren't gonna really wobble free as long as you do have a good mount and a good optic with it. The biggest pro for me about an Lpvo. You ready? No batteries. I don't ever need batteries for this thing. It has an etched reticle. What that means is the actual glass of the optic is etched or engraved to allow me to see the reticle at any point of the day. Now, granted, it might be difficult at nighttime or in direct sunlight. I digress, but I'm never gonna need to use batteries for this. This one is an illuminated optic, so I can use batteries to make it easier to see at night and to actually illuminate that reticle while I'm shooting. But my battery goes dead, don't need to worry about it because I have an etched reticle. It will run and run and run as long as this thing doesn't turn to dust. I find them to be more accurate. That's my personal thing. Some of you might say that the red dot is more accurate, whatever. I find these for myself to be more accurate because the magnification on here is on a crisped, etched reticle. It's not a projected dot. So for my eye at least, when I crank this up and I am zeroing or I am just taking more distance, accuracy style shooting, I find this to be much more accurate than a red dot with a magnifier. That's my eyes, my opinion. When I zero this bad boy, I do take a little bit more time because I feel like it is more accurate. I can sit there, I can look down the scope and really kind of hone in what I'm hitting, right? I can see a little bit better for my eyes and I like it. I think it's a little bit more accurate in that regards. So, some big pros for this guy. Let's talk about the cons. It's gonna be heavier. Right off the bat, this is gonna be heavier than just a red dot. That's important. If you want something similar with a red dot and a magnifier, on the other hand, you're breaking into about the same ballpark. This still might be a little bit heavier, but you're gonna be in the same range. Same thing with costs, more expensive. These are gonna be more expensive than a red dot, but just a red dot. If you start getting into the range of a red dot and a magnifier, again, these still might be a little bit more, but it's 1 unit compared to 2. Pros and cons, right? It's got more going on with it as well. There is more going on with this optic than a red dot and a magnifier. There are separate pieces of glass all throughout it. There's gearing mechanisms that move them closer and further away. There's electronics. There's turret dials to move the actual reticle. There's a lot. There is more chance of failure when you compare it to an engineering standpoint. It's got a steeper learning curve as well. That being said, you have to learn your eye relief. It's not going to be just as simple as bringing a red dot up, hovering it over the target, and pulling your shots. Now, for some of you experienced shooters, I'm sure you're probably like, oh, LPVOs aren't that bad. For a new shooter, learning how to present their firearm and find their actual eye relief with an optic, it's going to take a little bit longer. It's going to take more time. Nothing you can't get around with a few hundred rounds and repetitions or dry fire, but it is a steeper learning curve, and that is a con. It's got to call it what it is. So, at the end of the day, which one should you choose? Which one do you want to get? Which one is going to serve you best? That's personal preference, but I'll tell you what serves me best. Lpvo. I was a hater on these things when I first saw them come out and really saw them, being thrown on every rifle here and there. I was like, who needs that? Why are so many people running those? But it's really one of those things that once you throw it on a rifle and once you start playing around with it, you understand why. Even though it doesn't have a true 1x magnification, looking through that many pieces of glass is always going to give you a little like parallax or a little differentiation in what you're actually seeing. It's still very, very crisp and clear, right? It's still very similar to a red dot at that 1x magnification. I find it to be the best of both worlds. I find it to be easier to train with when I go from a 1x and crank it up to a 6. I find that easier on my eye than actually flipping over a magnifier. It's just me, that's my training, maybe I need to work on it more. Sue me. This is still what I'm going to take, it's what I'm going to go with, and one of the main reasons is no batteries. That's just a big thing for me. I like it. Call me crazy. It is what it is. But end of the day, Lpvo takes my heart. So guys, that being said, if you like the red dot, if you like the red dot with a magnifier, if you like the Lpvo, more power to you guys. Get training. It's the most important thing. Use some practical things, use what you like, and make sure you're proficient with them. That being said, thank you for watching, guys. This has been Nolan with Tacticon Armament. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. It lets my overlords know that you like what I'm doing and they want to keep me around. Thanks again. See you next time.